Thanks very much for having me, everyone. So, somewhere I belong. Like the rest of our speakers, I think I was very inspired by this topic. My mother's an artist. My father was a musician. We lived in a series of rented houses. I have been assured they were all properly rented, although I think they were squats. But anyway, we lived with various numbers of people, all of whom were also in some sort of creative profession, creative activity. We also lived with a large amount of cats. Not all of the places that we lived were particularly sound. And I remember one place in particular that we were being evicted from because it was falling apart around our ears. So before it was demolished and before we were kicked out, my mother encouraged me to paint on the walls. And I still think I might be one of the only kids ever who was encouraged to paint on the walls by her parents. Apart from our family, the one thing that was held most dear and valued most highly was creativity, art, self-expression. That was the most important thing. It was more important than money. It was certainly more important than normalcy. It was more important than fitting in. It was the driving force behind everything that my family did. And it was the world in which I belonged. And I never even questioned the fact that that was the world in which I belonged, because everybody that I knew and everybody that I saw belonged to the same world, the world of art and music and dance and words and everything like that. So when I was 9, I told my parents I wanted to be a writer, and they said, good, fine, that's great. You already are a writer. When I was published at 16, they were very happy and very proud, but not surprised, because that's what happens when you're a writer. When I was in my teens and I said that I also wanted to be a filmmaker, again, all I received was unbridled emotional support and joy from them. There was never any conversation about whether or not I would be able to make a living, or whether or not I had a fallback position, or whether or not it was a real job. No. All that mattered was that I'd found my path. I'd found my creative expression, my art, my world of creativity in which I was going to belong. And I'm embarrassed to tell you that it wasn't until I was at university that I realised that not everybody belonged to the world of art and creativity. For a lot of the people that I met, it was a world that they knew about but only visited occasionally, or had lived in when they were children but been snatched away from it as they'd gotten older. It was a world that they dreamt of belonging to or aspired to belong to, but actually didn't ever feel like it was really theirs. Worse than that, they constantly encountered a group of people that I refer to as the reality police. The reality police have a version of reality, and they consider it to be their job to make sure that we all abide by their rules of what reality is supposed to be. And in their reality, I frequently found it seems to be that there is no money in the arts, and you're not allowed to have a creative job. You must have a proper job at some point in your life, and your creative expression can be a hobby, but that's all. I don't listen to the reality police, as I'm sure you've realised. So I was a writer and a filmmaker, and that's always been my creative expression, and it still is. I still write and I still make films, but for about 20 years I've been helping other people to figure out how they belong in this world. I consider myself to be incredibly fortunate to be standing at the crossroads between art and business, because that's where I have always stood. Although I loved the free-floating communal existence of my childhood, I also really like money. And so I figured out a way to draw those two worlds together, to continue to follow my creative practice, but also figure out a way to monetize it, which is what I've been doing for most of my life. So, for 20 years I've been helping other people through workshops or training or individual coaching or writing books or whatever it might be. And in 2004, this very sexy thing started to happen overseas. I started hearing whispers of this extremely exciting phrase called the creative economy. And it was starting in the UK and the States and in Canada, and we were starting to get little dribbly bits of it over here as well. This thrilling notion that we were no longer a bunch of individual basket weavers all pottering away in our sheds, the 1% economy, as we used to be referred, hardly even a blip on the radar, But somehow if we took all of the artists and all the writers and all the filmmakers and we mashed them all together and created an industry out of them, then somehow we become a viable group to be reckoned with. So not only was I a little bit turned on by this idea of the creative economy, I was even more turned on by this thing called creative industry. We were an industry? So all of a sudden we were like agriculture or mining, you know, not just a bunch of hobbyists, but a bunch of people who are actually, heaven forbid, contributing to the gross domestic product. I know, that's the kind of stuff that turns me on. So I went over to the UK in 2006 to get more of the lay of the land over there, and I saw some really exciting things happening, and I thought, you know, as has been mentioned by some of our other speakers, if it's happening over there, it's bound to happen here at some point. Better get home and get ready. And so that is exactly what happened. You know, at a policy level, there started to be more talk about this creative economy thing. And then at the last census, we suddenly went from being the 1% economy to the 6% economy. Our numbers multiplied practically exponentially. And it was also found in the state of New South Wales, which is of course our little hub, that there are more of us working in the creative industries than there are in mining and agriculture combined. And our numbers are equivalent to those who work in finance. Feel free to bust out those statistics, by the way, next time you get hassled by the reality police. As soon as you say the word finance, people get really excited. So as part of the New South Wales Industry Action Plan that happened last year at Vivid, it was decided that a New South Wales creative industry business advisor needed to be appointed, and I'm very proud to say that I was given that job. Very long title, I need a big business card. What does my job involve? Well, in a big picture way, my job involves advising politicians and policymakers about the best way to help creative people maximise their business potential. In other words, how do we help creative people make money? How do we help creative people be independent in their own businesses so that they become less reliant on things like government funding and grants? Which I think is a great thing. The more we can sing our own song and beat our own path, the more likely we are to actually be able to express ourselves the way that we want to. But the most important thing that I do is help individuals. So I've been given funding to work individually with one-on-one mentoring and coaching sessions for creative practitioners to help them to build their own businesses at no cost to them, which is of course the plug that comes at the end of the talk. To encourage you, if you want to come and see me to get some more advice and feedback about your business and your creativity and how to make those two things match up so that you can start making some money. And I would like to tell you that I've spent the last 20 years doing all of this stuff because I'm a really, really nice person. But that is in fact not entirely the case. I'm very, very grateful that I have always felt like I belong in the world of art. I move through the world of creativity feeling like it is my space. And it gives me great joy to help other people to feel the same way. But more to the point, the more of us who feel like we belong to the world of art and creativity and self-expression and belong to the world of business, the stronger we become as an industry. The more enriched we become, the more plentiful we become in numbers, and the more powerful we are as a voice to be reckoned with so we can finally silence the reality police. Thanks very much for having me.